thesis for my MPhil is on mediation and ADR confidentiality. ADR is alternative dispute resolution. Mediation is a form of ADR, and there are alternatives to going to court. There are two essential questions in my thesis. What is the confidentiality, and why is it important? What it is, lawyers disagree, courts disagree, other people disagree over the sources of this confidentiality. Some jurisdictions have cut through the problem and simply introduced laws to make the process confidential. Hong Kong is one of those jurisdictions. Unfortunately, the legislation has problems, which I deal with in the thesis. The second question, the second issue, why is it important? It's important because if we don't have confidentiality, the process is not separate, it's not an alternative to litigation, and that matters to the parties, to lawyers and to the courts, and that's why I wrote the thesis. Well, in terms of challenges, it's always difficult trying to write something of considerable length over a considerable period of time. I am a full-time member of staff at Hong Kong U, so I have many other priorities to deal with. I teach, I have to write articles as everyone else does, and I'm also the director of the Asian Institute of International Financial Law. So I think in many respects the challenge for me was time.
As a full-time academic in the Hong Kong U PCLL, there was never any doubt about Gary's intellectual research and writing abilities. I am delighted with his total success. I was always very impressed with Gary's professional approach to the work, the more so since he was at the same time a committed and totally smitten first-time dad.
I'd like to thank Janice Grabin and Professor Michael Wilkinson, who were the two supervisors over the course of my MPhil. I'd also like to thank my wife Miranda and daughter Rachel for having to put up with a superannuated student for several years.
My research project is about the hepatitis B core protein and its specific domain interacting with the cccDNA so that we can have a better understanding of this viral infection. The major challenge of my research project is the data mining and the process of troubleshooting during the experiment.
Tommy is an enthusiastic student, and he's hardworking, and he likes to work with other people in the lab. And also, on the other hand, he's also an independent researcher. And during his time in the study, he's actually willing to try to do many difficult experiments. So I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Tommy on his getting of this Lee Ka-shing Prize.
I would like to give thanks to my primary supervisor, Dr. Danny Wong, and Professor M.F. Yun, and a special thanks will be given to Professor C.L. Lai, which has given massive support to my study and further thesis writing.
So my thesis is about a very special kind of literature written in a unique script from the extended Himalayas in China's Yunnan province, specifically the Nasi Doba script. And it's very special because it's very pictographic. So not many people can read it. What I'm really trying to do is to look at how translators have come in from both China and the West to try and stop it from dying out completely by translating the stories that they write about and the rituals that are contained in these books. I remember in August 2016 I was part of a research project which is to digitize these specific texts. We went into a very small village in remote Yunnan province, and we were working with these very old ritualists, like 80 something years old, and he was helping us to understand what these texts mean. And we were using video equipment to record him performing these texts, so preserving them. And actually the year after that, in 2017, the Dongba we were working with actually passed away, so it was very sad, but we were lucky we got the chance to go there and to record those things just in time.
If it's my place to say proud of Duncan for this award. I know that it's the result. His dissertation was the result of years of research and interest and so on. So this is one of the best dissertations I've ever read, and so it was very clear even from that moment that we were going to be able to nominate this for the Li Ka-shing Prize.
Well, I think I should start by saying I had two supervisors, and I'd like to thank them both profusely. First, Professor Wang He and Professor Lucas Klein, both helped me greatly. And I would definitely like to thank Dongba He Guowei in Yunnan, who is one of the Nazi people and a ritual practitioner himself. And without his guidance and his teaching, I don't think I would have had the confidence to talk about the Nazi script in any detail in my thesis.
My project is based on the study of multilateral investment treaties, namely treaties that protect and promote foreign investment. In my thesis, I attempt to show that these treaties actually codify and progressively develop customary international investment law, that is, the default rules that govern the relations between states in the field of investment promotion and protection. And the study of these treaties is actually of particular importance, since the quality, content, and extent of the rights that foreign investors enjoy has been, and in fact continues to be, the subject of much disagreement and debate. My study attempts to help the user, the practitioner, the investor, the negotiator, and the policymaker to navigate through the maze of modern international investment law, to see the forest for the trees, and to make sense of this ocean of international investment law instruments that exist against the backdrop of the default customary international investment law rules that apply in the absence of any agreement. And as you can imagine, writing these theses has been both exciting and challenging, but in a fairly unique way. It was the very excitement and dynamism of contemporary developments that has fueled most of the challenges I was faced with. The mega trade and investment deals that were recently concluded or are still under negotiation, coupled with the sudden change of negotiating tactics that new realities and new administrations dictate, provided me with all the necessary materials that were required to stress test the thesis.
Odysseus was an outstanding student. He worked hard, he was very smart, motivated, self-motivated, and not just maturity, but wisdom. Judgment was amazing, right? Not just knowledge about the law, but the application of law in real-life situations. I haven't seen a student that had that level of maturity and wisdom, and perhaps I won't ever see a student like that again.
They say that writing a doctoral dissertation is a lonely process, but my supervisor, Professor James Fry, actually made it less lonely and more dialectic, and I'm forever grateful for his support, mentoring, and guidance. Finally, my family and my fiance have always been there for me, and I think it's no overstatement to say that had it not been for their unconditional love and support, none of this would have been possible. Thank you.
My research is mainly about all optical signal processing. So the conventional way of optical signal detection is that we will first convert the optical signal into electrical signal and then use electrical devices to analyze the signal. However, there is a very hard speed limitation in electrical devices, so it only allows us to resolve the optical signals down to picosecond scale. So my research is focused on a technique called the time microscope. So just like a conventional spatial microscope, which can provide us a large image of a very small object, we have applied this concept in the time domain using optical techniques. So essentially, this time microscope can magnify or temporally slow down optical signals by 2 orders of magnitude.
I'm most impressed by Bowen's proactiveness. So being a PhD student, usually at the very beginning, they may expect that the supervisor providing a lot of guidance, for example, what kind of experiment or what kind of research direction to go to pursue. But Bowen is very proactive in the sense that he has something in mind, he explored the field and also proposing some experiment or idea that I may not have thought about.
So during my second year of PhD study, there was actually a time when I want to give up this research direction because we simply cannot find a very good application for this technique. And so all those efforts seems to be meaningless. Fortunately, my supervisor, Professor Wang, convinced me to carry on and further optimize this technique. And luckily, at that time, another direction in optics happens to develop to a stage where many researchers are trying to observe some ultra-fast waveforms in a very small devices which we call microresonators. So at that time, our techniques appeared to be almost the only suitable technique to achieve this goal. And because of our previous records, we were able to quickly establish some collaboration with a research group in UCLA, and we ended up to be the first one to achieve real-time observation of the ultra-fast waveforms in microresonators. So I want to sincerely thank my supervisor, Professor Kenneth Wang, and this research is finally published in Nature Communication. So it is first a very hard but eventually very rewarding experience, and it helped me to finally make up my mind to pursue a career in academia. Before immunotherapy, the chance for chemotherapy or target therapy to cure a cancer patient with advanced tumor is actually very low. Probably can prolong the survival for several months. So this is why the cancer research community is so excited about the immunotherapy, as they can actually offer a cure to the patients. The main focus of my PhD research is to expand the patient population that can be benefited from the immunotherapies. So we discovered that the liver cancer can produce 2 important cytokines or chemokines, which is CD26 and ENDP2, which can recruit and maintain the immunosuppressive myeloid cells. Those myeloid cells can deactivate our immune response, so therefore it's bad for the immunotherapies. So by targeting CD26 and ENDP2, we can remove the immunosuppressive cells from tumors and increase the efficacy of the immunotherapies. One of the most memorable events during my PhD study is actually when I present my work in the public conference. And at that time, it's a poster presentation in a pharmaceutical company which is very excited about my research. So we discussed a lot, and it's the first time I'm feeling that the work I'm doing is actually very meaningful and actually have a chance to translate into medicine, and maybe the patients have a chance to benefit based on my research.
So about David, he's actually 1 in a million type of student that every supervisor is looking for. He has all the characteristics for a good scientist, and he's the scientist and my student who established the immunology platform for my team, and I'm very fortunate to have him as my student.
I'd like to thank for my supervisor, which is also my mentor and also friend, Dr. Tara Ball. Without her guidance, I think I cannot achieve this much. And also I would like to thank to my co-supervisor, Professor Irene, for his experience, guidance on my clinical study and support. So lastly, I would also like to thank for my family, my parents, my brothers, and also my fiancé for their unconditional love and support during my PhD research.